What is context blindness? Well, this is a term that my sister recently brought to my attention because I've been pretty baffled about some of my behavior over the course of my lifetime. And so it really explains a lot. So I'm going to explain to you what that means from an adult's perspective of a person who actually suffers from it. So most of the information out there is from a clinical perspective, and it's written, geared towards parents and in relation to children and how it affects children. So there's not a lot. At the time when I was doing occupational therapy for my autism spectrum disorder, I was the first adult that my therapist had ever worked with, and there really just wasn't a lot of information out there for how this condition affects adults. So autism spectrum disorder essentially means that I'm not autistic. So I drew a little like rainbow for you. I'm missing colors right now, but so think of the autistic person as being the rainbow. There are a certain number of colors that have to be there in order to classify the person as being autistic. So autism spectrum disorder is, let's say this is sensory processing disorder. It is red. It's not a rainbow. It's a red upside down U. Here's an orange upside down U. Not a rainbow. These are not rainbows, right? This is not being autistic. This is being on the spectrum. Okay, so there are numerous different colors on the spectrum, and one of them is sensory processing disorder. Everybody can have sensory processing issues from time to time. Stress, lack of sleep, being overwhelmed, low blood sugar. There's a lot of things that can affect your ability to process information. But when it's a disorder, it's an actual neurological condition where the brain doesn't, there's something that naturally happens for people. Your brain just naturally does this. It filters out the sound of the ticking clock. It filters out the air purifier. It filters out all the other people in the room talking, and you're able to just focus in on the person right in front of you. But when you have sensory processing disorder, you're hearing everything, and your brain, it's like a sensory traffic jam, and you're not able to make sense of the information that's coming in because it's just too much information. You can't decide, you can't determine what is important information and what is not. Like it's a real condition. It's a neurological condition. So what is context blindness? That's an aspect of sensory processing disorder. And my sister used the example from a book, and it was basically this. So a child sees a dog, the dog is growling, puts his hand out, the dog bites him. The next day, child sees the dog is growling, puts his hand out, the dog bites him, and so on and so forth. And for everybody else, they're like, what is wrong with you? Why didn't you pick up the dog is growling, therefore it's going to bite you? And I'll explain why. So Friday, I go out to my friend's house and I'm playing in the backyard, and I've got a hula hoop and I'm barefoot, and a dog comes up and it's growling. I put my hand out and it bites me. I stay the night. The next day, I'm in the front yard. It's cloudy, so I've got shoes and a coat on, and I'm not hula hooping. I'm playing a nose harp. Dog comes up, it's growling. Put my hand out, it bites me. Next day, I'm home. I'm walking in front of my house down the road. A dog comes up, it growls, and it bites me because I put my hand out again. So and to use an example from my childhood, and this is something that the kids did because, kids are not nice. We learn empathy. We are not built in with empathy. So that's why children are tried as children, not adults, in the court of law, because their brains are not fully developed. They haven't developed their full empathy yet. So, people with sensory processing disorder, they tend to be bullied, and so this situation, there was a girl, and she did this a lot, and every time I would comply. So she'd say, if you give me your candy from your lunch, I'll play with you on recess. So I'd give her the candy, and then she would pretend to be sick and go to the nurse's office. And so this happened over and over and over again, and other kids did it too, because they realized that I would just, because it's a new person, something's different, or whatever. Like, it was not processing in my brain, that this was going to happen. And it's not that I was dumb, I'm not obviously, I'm obviously not dumb. It's just that I'm noticing too many things, and I'm not able to determine what is important. So, for children, there's a lot of therapy. The occupational therapy. There's a lot of things you can do to help the brain of a child who has sensory processing disorder learn to process information better. And the child's brain is still developing, so with the right kind of therapy, they can grow up to be completely normal adults and no longer have sensory processing disorder. And but when you're an adult and you've never had that therapy, you've never, your brain's already formed. You can improve your processing. There's a lot of things that you can do, but your brain is already formed. So for me, one of the things that my neurologist had recommended was to walk on trails instead of on a road, to walk like difficult trails where there's like roots and curves and up and down and rocks, and my body is constantly having to make decisions. I'm not just taking this repetitive step after step after step, always the same thing. I'm having to constantly respond to all the input that's coming in. And then there are things that you can do, like there's therapies. So there's a brushing technique that can, if you do that every 2 hours, it does help your brain function a little bit better. Squishing, so when I get sensory overload, I like to be squished. Not like hurt squished, but like a hug, like a, be squeezed. There's joint compression. There's certain behaviors or certain like exercises that you can do, like when I'm waiting in the line at the grocery store, figure eights, little itty bitty figure eights with my nose, and then go the other way, which is a little harder. There's also like opposite leg, opposite hand. So you're, hit that knee, and you're back and forth, having to do opposite sides of your body. Also with your feet, right hand, left foot, right hand, left foot. Playing the drums was really great for me. And when I was playing the drums, that was probably the best that my sensory processing issues ever were. Of course, I wasn't diagnosed at the time. I just knew that I had to do it. And it was that getting all limbs to be working independent of each other that is it's the best medicine for the brain. Swimming, you're responding to, like, if other people are in the water and the water's jostling or moving, and then you're doing opposite arm, opposite leg. So like, backstroke, you're like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you're going, 3 kicks for every one arm move. So on different rhythms, those kinds of things are really helpful for processing information. So I hope I explained what context blindness is. It's essentially a sensory traffic jam. And, as an adult, I have been in a number of, especially recently, like not older adult, but, as I've aged, I found myself in some really abusive situations, and then like reflecting on my childhood and all these situations where I didn't call anybody to help. I didn't call my mom. I didn't, I just, it's like I feel this paralysis. It's a really awful feeling. Like, you just don't, you don't have enough time to make the decision for what to do to get yourself out of a situation. And if a lot of your the sensory input that's coming in is really negative, painful, negative, it's even harder to make that decision to, what to do in the situation. And there's never time, there's never enough time for me to go, okay, this is, list all the things that I'm seeing, which I'm seeing everything. Like, everybody else is tuning out and they're not noticing all this stuff. Like, I am noticing everything, and I'm having to make sense of that. So I have to go through it and determine what information is important and what information is not, and then figure out my, what to do. So for me right now, I've realized now where I'm at, and I'm understanding better why, because if you don't understand why you're doing this repeatedly, it just is so frustrating. So then to, like, hit a point where I understand why, that's the first step towards, taking control of my life, and making better choices for myself. But so in the process of doing this, I have limited the amount of people who have access to me on anything but like a not in person. Like, I can text with you, I can exchange messages, but the amount of people that I am actually giving one-on-one immediate time with is very, very narrowed down right now, simply because I have to, like, at some point I have to stop all of the trampling of my boundaries and, like, heal that, like, that paralysis, because I have PTSD in addition, so, and some of it is, like, because of my programming as a kid and not really understanding why I was different, and so then I, multiple situations where I'm being taken advantage of, or, I had a very abusive father. I don't talk about this, but as part of my healing process, I feel like it's important to I don't know, just come, like, be honest about where I'm at, and I don't know, maybe it can help other people, but I think that as an adult with sensory processing disorder, that there are probably a lot of other people out there with the same issue that have found like been really frustrated, not understood why they, you know, don't get themselves out of situations. So yeah, in the process of healing, I'm limiting the amount of people who have access to me, like, you know, real time, so that I can make decisions. Like, I have the time to make the decision, and I can prevent myself from being victimized. Yeah. So personal, very personal again. Yeah. Here it is, the real deal. Thanks for watching.